All right, traders, welcome to today's recap from Monday. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and we'll start with the big guy. Oil up 2.9%. What a huge move it was. We had just added some energy exposure on Friday. I had put together two trades. XOP, which is the oil and gas ETF. We went long that on Friday, both in options and in cash. So I originally put it on in cash. And then we started to see more and more option activity towards the end of the day on Friday, and really caught a nice winner. And a lot of members did so as well with the XOP. I think helping was I had talked about putting on either XLE or XOP in cash as a long, and just kind of putting that on and structuring that as an earnings trade as well. Huge winner today. And if you look at this, so up 4.2% today. Again, this is the oil and gas equally weighted ETF. It's a good one because it will move a lot considering that it's equally weighted. The small caps have the same weight as the larger cap names, so it will move. And if you look at some of the names in this ETF, not a bad day when you've got you go to the top of the list of performers in the ETF. You've got a bunch of names that are up over 10%, a lot of names in this upper 5 to 10% for the day, and even on the bottom of the screen, you have to go all the way down here to see the worst performers. But I guess the worst one today was MPC. But still, not one name that was red in the whole group. So really, really strong. And that's kind of how the day was. There was option activity in just about every name. We pointed out some really good flow on Friday. It's funny because now you see people pointing it out. Oh, they're looking back and they're saying, oh yeah, there was call buying in SLB and RRC. If you look at the go ahead and search in Twitter and look what people were talking about RRC and SLB on Friday, not today, on Friday, talking about the call activity. It's easy to go back today and look to see what happened, but I don't see very many people talking about what we saw and what we were tweeting about the activity. So we really picked. My point is, we picked up on this, uh, and better than picking up on it, we capitalized on it very well today. So that was the story of what we saw on Friday. Besides RRC and SLB, we saw the XOP, we saw IEO, we saw USO call buying. So again, that's what compelled me to kind of put on some decent risk on these on Friday. And I did put out a video on Sunday before oil was up as well about all different the differences between the ETFs as well as single name energy names that are in uptrend. So if you get a chance to take a look at that, I think it's still worth a look. But you could kind of see, and let me just pinpoint the energy names here for a minute. Devon Energy in the morning, more Schlumberger a couple times today, repeat again from adding on from Friday. Halliburton, real big chunky order as well. I actually took these Halliburton calls, even though they were Halliburton is still underneath the 200-day moving average. MRO, a huge block for November, 39,000. More XOP going up. RSX, which I view also as energy related. There's a lot of energy companies in this Russia ETF. NOV, EOG, Hess, RRC. There was a couple other ones in here too. There's just too many to mention. So half of this, once we already start to see these things moving, is momentum players, right? They miss the move. They're not exactly the smartest option activity orders in the world. They're just tagging on momentum. So you have to be a little bit careful, I think, with some of these orders. Because sometimes they are wrong. The ones that like I said, were really interesting were the ones that were happening last week when there wasn't that much momentum there. Energy names were still moving to the upside, but not like they are today. So this always happens when we see option activity. We see a couple real smart guys kind of pick and choose different spots and different names, and nothing's really moving. And then once everything starts to moving, all the momentum players, so it's different type of call buyer. They jump on. So you look at the overall indices again, and this is kind of really the sweet spot of where we've been this year. S&P fine. It did actually end up 20 basis points. So it was a grind for the most of the day. The S&P was basically flat or like up about 5 to 10 basis points. And that's all we really need. There's been plenty of names that are really moving to the upside. Just a whole bunch of semiconductor names. I think a lot of names that after the two deals that were announced, Qualcomm and Broadcom, or possible deals in Cavium and Marvell. Xilinx saw some nice call buying. That was a big winner in the room today. Cypress also was another name, but it's pin action essentially. It's once somebody comes out and decides to take somebody over, the whole space gets revalued up. So we saw Cypress, Xilinx. I think there was one other name in the space that we saw. We did see some more Intel calls going up again. It's just funny what Intel is doing. We did see a little bit of AMD at the end of the day. Real big move on that one with the talk of them joining up with Intel, AMD and Intel. We saw some more Splunk calls today, so that's been awesome. I think they report and not this week but next week. That's been a real nice move the last week. We identified this the MACD crossover. I've been long this name for a little while now, but for those who wanted to get in a little bit after I did, you kind of caught this move right on the MACD crossover. Been talking about it in the room, and a nice move from about $64 to 68. So nice move in that. Again, just a lot of different names. ABBA, which is Alt ABBA. This name has been seeing repeat activity and a big chunky order that came in twice, two blocks. I would say. I think the total they got up to was about 20,000, but these are the December 80s. I still don't know when this name reports earnings. It might be 11/28. They keep changing it. But you can see that was actually 26,000 contracts traded December 80. So that's pretty far up there. 80s all the way up here. So I don't know, maybe that does cover earnings for them. But that's a name that we've seen action several times now in. Wynn was a real nice call buyer this morning. The casino started to go again this morning. It actually faded, it looks like, but you had a chance as a day trade to really make a lot of money in that trade today. This was a name also, a small name that's been seeing option activity. There was a lot of action in the pharma space or biotech space. Zoetis, the last couple days, this thing since earnings has been a monster, $63 to $69. And again, they've been buying that ever since they reported earnings. So really nice move. I think we saw small order before or sharp aggressive order before earnings as well. But they've been going after that name almost every day. I feel like I'm missing a couple names in here, but Cypress, Coles, they've gone after multiple times now. They do report earnings in a few days, I believe. LUK, maybe add this name to your watch list. I did not take a position in this one. AIG, I don't know why, but they're buying a lot of weeklies in this one. I took this trade and made it into a swing trade. We'll see what happens here. Big drop on earnings, but has been clawing its way back since then. But a lot of weekly calls, November 10th calls going up there. OMER, I thought this was an interesting trade as well. This goes kind of back to you could make your own trade for some of these things. If you like this name, I'm not that familiar with this biotech name, but it's a $13 stock, and they went all the way out, which I like, to January 2019 with this trade. They came in twice. So keep in mind, 17 straight calls. You have to pay $4 for these. 17's all the way up here. If you're comfortable with, maybe picking a spot, maybe the bottom of value, 1356 might be your stop price, which is a pretty close stop. But rather than paying, $4 for $17 call, you basically have to get this to, let's say it takes a long time to move. Your break even is $21. So, for a name, and again, that's because of the time value and because it's, an 82% implied volatility. Why not just purchase the stock for 13 bucks? That's what our room was looking. The Tribeca Trade Group room was looking at doing today, because again, your break even's all the way at $21. That's a huge move. Again, a long amount of time, but why not just buy a $14 stock and make it simple? All right, so that was an interesting trade. AIG, we mentioned this one. Oh, DBC. So we did put on a couple trades in cash. Really like this. This is the commodity ETF where energy is about between energy, oil and gas, crude, different types of crude, different types of gasoline are in this commodity ETF. Then you also have gold and soybeans and that kind of thing, but they're lower weights. But what a great play to try to play if in case we get higher inflation. Really like this base. Look how long this base is in this ETF. It lasts about a year and a half. Downtrend, and this is basically how it works. When names have been in a long downtrend, they base for a long time and then they start going again. A lot of times people try to buy like right away. It doesn't usually you don't get a snapback rally. You get a long base and then you start moving higher. So that's what we have in DBC right now. So I went long this name. It's a little bit tricky because it is a basket of futures, and you have to deal with the contango issue and the slippage of buying front month futures. But as a retail investor, it's probably your best bet. I also took a small position in Norway, NORW. This is a very sensitive name to energy, to the commodity, and I saw some buying in cash in this one. So again, we don't always just look at option activity. We're not a one-trick pony at Tribeca Trade Group. We're looking at cash prints as well, and look at the volume that's been taking place in this ETF. So kind of a sneaky little way to play energy, and I'm long Norway after today. Just a couple other names. Oh, another one. So again, we had something for everybody. We had more Sarepta calls. This was repeat activity that we've been seeing in Sarepta. JD.com, which we structured a trade that's now a very nice, profitable trade in JD.com. I sold put spreads last week right on the 200-day moving average, and that's working out beautifully. But they came in twice to that one. And that's it. I'll leave it there. There was a little bit of put activity, but nothing really to, a lot of hedging. I think hedging both in emerging markets and small caps. I don't have every trade in here that's going to be that's going to be earnings related. It's just too many, but a couple of small put orders. So that's it. Again, just another great day in the room. Follow through from what we saw on Friday. We don't even need the major averages to really move. Of course, we don't want to see a lot of volatility on the downside, but with these types of orders that we're seeing, plenty of things to do, and it was take your pick day in terms of the signals that we got. So thanks for watching. Have a great night. Again, if you're interested in a trial in Tribeca Trade Group, you can email me directly, cfromhertz@gmail.com. So it's again my first initial last name, FROMHERTZ@gmail.com, and just request a trial, and I'll get you set up for a couple days, and you can see what it's like to be in the room. Thanks very much. Have a great night.